Hi everyone and welcome back to, again, this is me, Alan J. Fisher with the Art of the Storyteller. We're now on the Spanish lockdown day 42, which obviously it's a significant day for those of you who know me. It is obviously the Douglas Adams Day of lockdown, which makes it rather special indeed. And the good news is that the end is in sight. Our government has announced they're revisiting things come the 9th of May, which isn't too far away. It's only about 2 weeks away. But obviously, in all things sensible, it's going to be a scaled return to normal, as it were. It's not going to be an instant 9th of May, everyone outside. Even though, good gosh, me as a commentator and an observer, Sunday was considered the day all children under the age of 12 or 14, I don't remember which now, were allowed outside, accompanied by one parent, and in a couple of cities in Barcelona and Valencia and some other parts around here, they went a little bit crazy, and it seemed like it was the first week of the school holidays rather than a considered quiet and organized, let's take the kids outside to exercise them. It was mental, and I'm so glad that me and my wife had decided, despite all the noise you can hear the children making in the background, we decided to keep them indoors for the time being until we were sure that things were going to be safe. And now I'm glad we did because, gosh, with so many children and people running about doing craziness on that day, it could have been a risk for them. And I'm glad we didn't take that risk for them, especially now there's these rumors of this alternate disease related to coronavirus that seems to affect children more than adults. So, good gosh, I don't want that. So, it just goes to show people are people no matter where you go, and people will do bloody stupid things given the opportunity to do so. Gosh, I've done my fair share of stupid things. I won't deny it. I'd like to think that I'm sensible, at least in regards to this quarantine and everything and how we're handling it. But that's the me now, the calm, patient, considered, and disciplined me, who has not always been in existence. Trust me on that. I have been known to be a bit more of an impetuous, foolish, and stupid kind of person, and to some degree, I think, owe some of that controlled, calm, and disciplined nature of mine to my good lady wife, who's, as they like to, as the parlance goes, trained me well. It's true, relationships do sometimes change us a little bit, and definitely that's how I know I've got the right one, because I have put depth into my character since meeting her, which is a good thing, I believe. They say, oh, she's going to change you, she's going to make you into someone different. Not at all. Just made me more who I already am, a much more calm and self-assured person, perhaps, in many respects. Because I was a bit of a nervous wreck at times. I've made some very impetuous and stupid mistakes, and I'm leading up to something here, so bear with me. I think it was the biggest change that she and some members of my family mentioned was, well, obviously when she became pregnant with the twins. As I like to quote, or indirectly quote, our good and inestimable and sadly passed Mr. Terry Pratchett, that once a man knows that he's going to become in the familial way, he gets full of ginger and wants to shake up the world, even if it's just the world in his immediate vicinity, to very much paraphrase and steal it a little bit there. And it's true. I did go through some changes that everyone noticed. I became calmer, more centered, and more focused, which is only to be a good thing, I expect. God knows. But either way. And this is what I'm leading up to. We have seen in some parts of the world one particular very large, and not to name the country, but a very American part of the world, where, shall we say, to quote my good friend of Project Tetrarch, anarchy reigns. And was it Mark Spark? That's my friend, yes. Marcus Spark, fantastic fellow. And anarchy reigns in parts of America. At the moment, I try and remain somewhat neutral politically. Yeah, okay. Anyone who really knows me doesn't believe that 1 minute. And oh yeah, do you like my quarantine, dude? I definitely need a bit of a trim there. It's getting a bit out of control. But anarchy does reign. We are divided between people saying that this whole coronavirus thing doesn't exist, that it is a hoax invented solely to remove a certain occupant of a rather large and important house, which is white in color in Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, from his residence and position that comes with it, or vice versa, whichever way you want to look at it. There are people who are saying it has been exaggerated and that it is a socialist experiment to force people to accept socialist institutions and to take away their liberties and force them indoors against their will so that they don't die of a horrible, raspingly terrible asthmatic death in a hospital and then be thrown in then be buried in a mass grave in a plywood box, because obviously that's what everyone wants. And they've been going out, they've been demonstrating, they've been fighting, they've been complaining, they've been coming up with all kinds of things that those of us here in the rest of the world are looking on in. And I speak quite freely for the rest of the world here. I name myself spokesman for the rest of the world, just like St. Peter wrote letters to whole countries and whole city-states. I speak for the world, or at least the part that America doesn't occupy. We are looking on in a combination of incredulity, shock, horror, and something approaching terror at what is happening over there. Obviously, like I said, I've been here, locked up here, going out for essential things such as food, and that's been about it for 42 days. I'm working from home. This screen you see me addressing you at, this area, is where I work. This is my office. Tomorrow I'm doing my shifts for the week from tomorrow. Thankfully, I've got the day off today. I've been doing this for 42 days, 43 coming on, without complaint. Most of the occupants of my country have been doing the same. And many people in many other countries have been doing the same. Italy began before us, so did Greece. France, England started slightly behind us, around and about the same sort of time. The rest of the UK also, clearly. Sorry for the rest of the UK. No offence meant. I'm Irish originally, I'm not English, despite the accent. And everything was going fine. There were some disagreements and some, shall we say, public negotiations of how the quarantine should work for everybody in England and parts of the UK also, but mostly in England. You'd be happy to know, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, it was mostly in England. The Scots, the Welsh and the Northern Irish were a little more sensible. Yeah, see, that light's probably bothering you all, so I decided to block it. But everybody finding out about what the whole COVID-19 is, what it entails, what it does, listening to medical professionals, listening to scientists, listening to epidemiologists and virologists and everyone like that, has accepted staying at home and doing the stuff you normally do outside of your home, apart from shopping, in your home, isn't such a bad deal compared to the alternative. And it's one of these things that I wanted to think about. I've thought about it a lot. I've tried to elucidate that thinking online in places like Twitter, seeing as I don't have, as I don't have a Facebook account anymore. And Instagram isn't really for the long conversations. And I really should get on Mastodon and Me a little bit more, perhaps, to sort of socialize, but I'm just not used to the platform, so I don't. But well, not to socialize, but to share opinions. Twitter for me seems the easiest place to do it, and I've got several people I have interesting conversations with on there. Several people I do not willingly have conversations with, but I try and hold at least a discussion, a conversation, or something along those lines. And I don't mean to offend anybody. I'm coming at this purely from the angle of a student of anthropology. As in, I'm not an official student, I don't have a degree in that, but studying people, seeing how people develop, seeing how societies and everything and language develop societies and people is part of my laissez-faire, pretty much. No, my raison d'être. I'm not going to bother trying to sound smart in French. My toolkit as a writer, because studying the nuances of people's behavior helps me create characters who are believable. So I study the nuances of behavior and of people, and it would appear I've developed an interest in whole countries. And it seems one thing that has been held in common here in Spain, especially because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it in Italy from Italian friends I have. It appears to be happening in France, in Australia, New Zealand especially. This idea of coming together, of having a common foe against whom to unite as a nation, as a people, and to come together as a society, to make sacrifices as a society for the good of society as a whole. And it is, I feel, something that's missing across America as a whole. And I've lived in America, I've spent close to 10 years there in various parts of America, and I've lived in 2 different states. I've lived in New Mexico and I've lived in Georgia, and I have seen for places that are separated by less than 2,000 miles, they could be no more different than one another. New Mexico is chilled, it is relaxed. There is some great sense of community in New Mexico, which I felt isn't as much existent in Georgia. In Georgia, there is a sense of community, but there is a sense of communities, as in there's the African American community, there's the Puerto Rican community, there's the Cuban community, there is the European Caucasian community, there is the Chinese, the Korean, the Cambodian, the Japanese, the Jamaican. Jamaicans consider themselves in many ways separate to the American African Americans, even though they are of original African descent. But obviously, those who know, Jamaica was a British colony, I suppose is the term, so they consider themselves more British and different. There are Indian communities, as in Indian, as in people from India, the place Columbus actually thought he was going to. Not Native Americans. There's less of a Native American presence that I saw, at least, in Georgia than I did in New Mexico. In New Mexico, there are several strong Native American communities who just became part of the tapestry of that era of New Mexico, which I loved. But in Georgia, there are separate communities, and each community comes together as their little community. And that's what I'm using as a model for my thinking. I don't think that in America, that unity of purpose, that unity of identity, that unity of country exists outside, excuse me, of the community to which you feel you are a part. You know, it can be different now. At the time when I was living in Georgia, I was in a relationship with a black woman. I was living in a black neighborhood, and I was accepted. They had no problem with me. The fact that I wasn't a black person, the fact that I didn't try and behave in the same way as a black person, I was just me. But I lived there. I was part of that family. I was their neighbor. They accepted me. It was nice. At first, there was a little bit of friction, but once they got to know me, it was fine. And that's always a thing in America. That's what I think it is. You've got the division between states and the identity each state has of itself. You know, obviously each state has its governor, and some governors have taken the threat of COVID-19 more seriously than others. But within each of those states, you have the communities that each, shall we say, ethnicity or each group of appearance, I suppose you should call it, the different cultures and appearances and groups and what I suppose what you could call original origin, because they're all Americans, but some of them are different Americans. Each ethnicity, cultural group, original origin group will come together, but at times at contretemps to one another. We have seen a particular demographic of people who follow, shall we say, a certain branch of Christianity more common in America than other parts of the world, who think the Confederate flag is a worthy thing to fly in public. Yeah, I know. Who are mostly of Caucasian European descent, and whose politics tend to lean in a certain direction, and who seem to be very, very much in favour of those politics which enable them to possess large caches of assault level weaponry, as if they were part of an army. Now, my opinions on that matter are well known to all of you. I have been accused, and I will go on at length if you would like to justify I've been accused of having a liberal political viewpoint. Let me just clear that up for you. I don't support any politician whatsoever at all. I may dislike one politician less than I dislike the others. I may dislike one certain politician more intense than the others, but that's a matter of my personal choice, not an ideological standpoint. I believe there are certain things which, to steal from the founding fathers of America, are self-evident. Things that are right with a capital R or wrong with a capital W. And these are not right or wrong because any form of ideology tells me that these are things that I know in my heart. That I am very much murder unless in self-defense, in which case it isn't murder, is wrong. Harming or physically abusing children is wrong. Rape is wrong. Intentionally doing harm to other people, regardless of whether they've upset you or not, is wrong. In effect, doing anything other than the most good you can do with your life is wrong. Taking revenge is wrong. Taking out your frustrations or your angers on other people is wrong. These are things I very firmly believe, and nobody in a suit or a fancy outfit has taught me this. I have, through the course of my life, excuse me, itchy nose. COVID. Sorry. through the course of my life, have discovered these things by myself and picked up these values, and perhaps I've always had them in here. Depends upon your metaphysical viewpoint of the world. But to me, I've always held these values very dear, and I have broken my own rules throughout my life. Who has not? One thing I'll readily admit, and I have admitted this, at a difference to those people who espouse certain values and may not necessarily live them. Let's say about 49, 50 days ago or thereabouts, was of the opinion that perhaps the media were exaggerating the whole COVID-19 thing a little bit. It would blow over, it'd be fine. We don't have anything to worry about. We don't need to panic. Then what we can call is a change of opinion via information received. I saw that I was wrong. I admitted that I was wrong. And, excuse me, bit of dyspepsia there. And unlike many people who are prominent in the political field, whether it's in England, whether it's in America, whether it's in other parts, I apologized unreservedly and admitted me, Alan J. Fisher, this guy here, had been wrong and made a mistake, and apologized if that had caused people who may perhaps value my opinions to make wrong decisions. Now, of course, I don't think I'm as influential as some of these politicians, some of these religious leaders, some of these famous folks out there could be. And I know I wasn't the only one who said these things. But the fact that we now have information that most of Europe, of Australasia, of India, of many parts in Africa, north and south, of of Canada, have been under this self-isolating, sheltering in place, quarantine, self-isolation for around 40 days or so, give or take. A little bit more, a little bit less than here in Spain. Now that we've had the World Health Organization, who have suddenly become the enemies of freedom in America. No, it's Bill Gates, isn't it? Sorry, Bill Gates now. Sorry, I've got a Windows computer as well. Dear God, what am I going to do? I am using the devil's operating system, the creator of the coronavirus. I'm using a computer powered by, what am I going to do? Oh God. Anyway, now with all that information available, now is the time when these people decide to take on the mantle of people who were acting on insufficient information, such as I. But the difference is, instead of, in my case, when information was presented to me that showed that that was not the case, I assessed that information, I absorbed it, I read it, I talked to people, and I changed my stance based on the fact that what I was saying before could not stand in the light of the new information. These people double down even further, or even to the point of our lovely fake newsification, say, oh, I never said that. Could you imagine what it'd be like, just on a smaller scale, me living here with my wife and calling my wife a horrible name the one day, and then us having a chat about it the following morning, and me saying, oh, no, I never said that. I've got it here on my phone. No, that's faked by your mother. That's your mother. She hates me. She doesn't. She loves me. It's your mother who hates me, or your ex-boyfriend trying to fake news so that you believe and divorce me. How, my friends, well do you think that would go? Answers on a postcard or in the comments. I don't think it would go well. No. would go very, very, very badly, very, very quickly. Yet we have a cult following of said individual who lap it up. And I, from a psychological viewpoint, cannot want to understand, but cannot for the life of me do so. Because honestly, from a psychological viewpoint, for me, if I believe something very strongly and someone says, look at this, read that, give it some thought, and then come back to me. And I look at it and I realize there is no way I can refute this evidence. This evidence clearly makes complete sense. We either go, oh, no, you made that up. You typed it yourself, didn't you? And you made it look like a newspaper, and then you hired these people for the video that goes along with it, and you had people impersonate this person so that it's no. But that's how people are going these days. It's kind of scary. I know I talk a lot about the dualistic, tribalistic nature of our society. You are either A or you are B. There's no in between. There's no just being you. You must belong. You must be this one or that one. You can't be you here in the middle. I'm me. I don't care what they want. I don't care what they want. I care about what I want, what I need, what my family needs, and what actual, in my opinion, truth is. Not the truth I am told by other people, but the truth I discover using this God-given gift, the most important one in our universe, as far as I am concerned, is this thing in here, which takes things I see, I observe, I read, I write, I hear, and converts them into thoughts. Not that this person says, hey, you, this is what happened. And I go, oh, yes, it did, well done. Now I'll go, well, did it? Prove it. And they'll say, no, you prove it for yourself. I'll go, actually, no, I don't think I'll bother. Thank you very much. I'll continue to look and believe as I have been up until that point. Have yourself a fantastic day, and thank you for wasting my time. And I think this is a thing that divides us here as writers, because as writers, yes, that was a very clumsy segue, I have to admit, but I've got to bring it back to writing somehow. As writers, we are the ones who want to know why, that want to know what motivates a person to do a certain thing, what circumstances may influence that person into making certain decisions, what actions other people take, and how they may affect how the other people behave, how this action that you take affects other people and everyone down the chain away from you. That is our stock in trade. We are, I suppose you could call it, what would you call it? We are highly loquacious amateur psychologists. Because while a psychologist, in the normal circumstances, a psychiatrist will look at you and figure out what your problems are and sum it up, we do the same thing and then write a whole novel about it. Or at least fit it into a novel. But we'll have an idea, we'll see it behave. Me personally, I've invented whole characters from just an anecdote or a certain behavior, a certain thing that somebody said has conjured up a whole character for me. One sentence. And I've gone from there, taking it from, as I said, my observations, my amateur psychology and psychiatry. As the famous meme goes, I became an expert in that last night while I was researching. We all like to think we're experts, but we're an inquiring, of a highly inquiring mind that we just don't let go. We want to know, we want to get to the bottom of it, and our defense mechanism, our coping mechanism for that is to put non-existent people through certain trials and tribulations to help us find out. It is one way of looking at it. But yeah, because we like to know. And I think that's the reason I am not an adherent to any particular creed, why I reject this whole tribe A or tribe B thing. Why I insist on being straight ahead and being me and going my way and not giving, excuse my French, an insane monkey's shit about what this group are telling me or what that group are telling me, and what this group is saying about that group and what that group is saying about this group and what they're whispering to me about each other. It's just not. It doesn't give me any joy or satisfaction. It doesn't get anything going. To me, being told what I must think is as alien to me as doing harm to my own children. No, it just wouldn't happen. Nobody out there would convince me that either those two little girls must suffer any discomfort, pain, or harm on my part under any circumstances. And it goes, that is central to my core of being. I know it's a terrible comparison to make, and I'm sure I may get a few horrible comments about it. As central to my core of being is the fact that I'm not having somebody in a suit or a pantsuit or a, what would you call it, ceremonial outfit tell me how I should think. My thought processes are independent of any religious interpretation, sacred to me. They come from wherever they come, whatever created us and did not, whether it was chance, whether it was a god, whether it was a group of gods, whether it's a competing group of aliens having a competition to see who could come up with the funniest intelligent creature. Doesn't matter. It's mine. And nobody is going to tell me how I should do it. And I feel only pity in some ways, as well as incomprehension, for people who are so easily influenced into slavishly, and I use the term intentionally, very slavishly being slaves to what someone they have never met, who will never know their names or care about their hopes and their fears in life, tells them to. I would not put my life on the line for some exceptionally rich chap who would never know my name unless it was handed to him on a piece of paper and they just glance at it and go, oh yeah, that guy. I don't see the point. And for that, I am accused of being a lily-livered liberal who cannot see the truth. And that's the thing that always, I've got plague. It's okay. That's what always strikes me as strange when I receive these lovely compliments from people on both extremes of the political spectrum, that for thinking independently for myself, for refusing just to wholesale swallow without chewing the party line, as it were, to just chug down the Soylent Green, just to chug down that Soylent Green without even letting it touch the sides, I am considered a weak-minded and enslaved individual. I'm sure while the irony clearly escapes them by quite a distance, it's not that they was sniffing around the bait, it's that it heard about the bait from a friend of a friend of a friend who avoided the bait earlier and went to a whole other ocean to avoid getting caught by your fishing line. The point is that I'm coming to is that, and we'll sum this up because I'll pull this in because I know we're getting short on time. We as writers, as artists, as creatives, as independent thinkers of all kinds, are often criticized. We will receive criticism. We are encouraged to conform to certain rules and manners of behavior. And let's be honest, what makes us these creative people is the fact that we do not do that. And sorry, I had to pause there because my daughter wants to watch Peppa Pig. And she got a little bit upset that Daddy was taking up the computer and not letting her watch Peppa Pig. But she's going to watch Peppa Pig in a minute. So, in a minute, sweetheart. This is what I have to deal with. I'm here trying to work when I'm doing this as well. And I've completely lost my train of thought here. I've completely lost my train of thought. Hello. There she is. This is Amber. Say hello to Amber. Say hello to everybody, Amber. Amber, you're crying at all the people watching. Oh. Anyway, we'll finish up here. Oh. Go and have a look. Quick. Go and have a look. That works every time. Anyway, to finish up quickly before they both come back. What makes you an individual makes you a very specific, different person, and what makes people try and force you to conform, to change, and to follow a set of rules you do not like is that very thing which you should treasure, which you should develop, and which you should take great pride in. Because we're all different, we're all weird, we are all, as you could call it, genetic accidents that our parents' genes and our ancestors' genes came together in a certain order, as well as experiences we had in life, to make us who we are. And these accidents of nature that we have become, these things which we are seeking to create as a result, should be honored, they should be prized, they should be treasured, just like the somewhat irritating behavior of my children is to be treasured. Me and my wife talk about it. While they are making a load of noise and fighting and crying and complaining, they are healthy. And that's the reason we're doing this whole thing of the quarantine, the shelter in place, the self-isolation, or whatever you want to call it, so that they continue to be that way. And I, as a father, have made this promise to those girls many times over. I will help them any step along the way of their lives to be exactly what they feel they need to be. And I give the same promise to all of you that I won't devote as much time, I won't lose as much sleep, and I won't invest anywhere near as much money into the same thing. I will help any of you, I will support any of you, I will champion any of you being exactly what it is that you want to be, having the opinions you want to have, writing about what you want to write, and how, with whatever characters you like. Because that is your right, that is your place in this world. And who am I? Who is the judge of what is right, what is wrong, and well, not what is acceptable, what is the way? What is the way? What is the way? I'm sorry, remind of a YouTube video. And what is the right way to do things? I know the right way to do things for me. I have my values, I have my beliefs, and I don't tell anyone that their beliefs are, well, yes, I do, but in anger at times, especially with some of these bloody stupid people on Twitter. But at the end of the day, I may not read your books, I may not like your books. You may not read mine, and you may not like mine. That's just the way it is. There are plenty of people out there, though, who will. And just because I don't like them doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it isn't right for me. And that's what I say to everybody out there. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it is your lifestyle, your work in progress, or your book, or your poem, your song, your painting, your vignette, your model, your draw, whatever. Whether it is your song, your music, whether it is your film, whether it is any artistic creation that came from here out to here. It's yours, it is right for you, and although not everyone is going to like it, although not everyone is going to agree on the set of rules they feel you should have followed to arrive at the final process of its inception, doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, to you, that matters, and your passion will communicate to other people. It may not happen right away, but it will. Just like us going back to freedom now and going back outside won't happen right away, but it will. Just as all those millions of fans pouring in and commenting on my videos hasn't happened yet, but it will. And to those of you, my firm, loyal regulars, I thank you as always. You guys are brilliant, you know. I love you guys. I really do. But I shall draw it to a close today with my very rambling and mixed message that you're all used to, a surprise visit from one of my daughters, who was not in a good mood at all. But so be it. The joys of parenting. What can we do? The joy. Consider yourself a writing parent, that you're a work in progress. Your art in vitro, in the production of being, in the process of being born, may not always get on with you either. But at the end of the day, they're yours. They love you and they will support you when the time comes, and they will look after me when I'm in the old folks' home in many decades from now. Not as many decades as I would like probably, but there you go. They will visit me occasionally and bring me cake, which is a lot to ask for, really, isn't it? But it's the same thing. I am definitely rambling, wandering, and coming up with really terrible jokes right now. So I will call it a day. I will thank you all, as usual, for joining me here in the Art of the Storyteller Special Observation Edition, Day 42, Day 43 now, of the Spanish COVID-19 lockdown. You take care, you be happy. Thank you as always, and keep fighting for what you are passionately believing in. Bye-bye.